The sky burned orange and red as another bomb fell on the city of Valora Prime. Ambassador Talon Vey stood at the window of the emergency council chamber and watched his world die. Behind him, the remaining elders argued in voices filled with fear and despair. "We have sent messages to 17 species," High Elder Cirrus said. Her voice was tired. She had not slept in 4 days. The Arthini refused. The Melox said they could not risk war with the Kreth. The Dominion Coalition offered prayers but no ships. Talon turned from the window. "There is one more species we have not contacted." The room went quiet. Every elder knew which species he meant. "The humans," Elder Physician Naleth whispered. "We know almost nothing about them. They joined the galactic community only 30 years ago." "We know enough," another elder said. "They come from a death world. A planet so dangerous that most species cannot survive there for a single day. They are violent, primitive. Their technology is generations behind the Kreth." Talon walked to the center of the room. "They are also our last hope. The Kreth fleet will reach our outer colonies in 6 days. In 12 days, they will be here. If we do not find help, our people will be extinct in 2 weeks. High Elder Cirrus closed her eyes. The Valorians were scholars, artists, teachers. They had never fought a war in their entire history. Their ships were built for exploration and trade, not combat. When the Kreth Dominion demanded their surrender, they had nothing to fight back with. "Send the message," Cirrus said finally. "Ask the humans for shelter. Perhaps they will allow our refugees to settle on one of their colony worlds." Talon nodded and left the chamber. He walked through corridors filled with frightened families waiting for evacuation shuttles that might never come. Children cried for parents who had already died in the bombing. The air smelled of smoke and fear. He reached the communication center and sat down at a terminal. His hands shook as he typed the message. He kept it simple because he did not know if the humans would understand complex diplomatic language. "To the people of Earth, we are the Valorians. Our world is dying. A powerful enemy attacks us, and we cannot fight back. We have asked many species for help. All have refused. We ask you now for shelter. We ask only for a place where our children can live. Please, we have nowhere else to turn." He sent the message and sat back in his chair. He did not expect a response. The humans were far away and had no reason to care about a species they had never met. 3 hours later, the terminal made a sound. Talon stared at the screen. A response had come from something called Earth Orbital Station 7. The message was short. "Message received. Stand by for response from Earth High Command. Do not lose hope." Talon did not understand. Stand by? Response from High Command? He had asked for refugee camps, not military involvement. 8 hours passed. Talon remained at the terminal, unable to sleep. When the second message arrived, he read it 3 times to make sure he understood the words correctly. "To the Valorian people, your request for shelter has been received and discussed by the United Earth Council. We have decided to respond. However, we do not offer shelter by running away from threats. Effective immediately, the Valorian system is declared a protected zone under Earth authority. Any attack on Valorian territory will be considered an attack on Earth itself. Our forces will arrive within 48 hours. Prepare for incoming friendly vessels." Message ends. Talon ran back to the council chamber. He burst through the doors and held up his communication device. They responded. The humans responded. High Elder Cirrus took the device and read the message. Her face went pale. "This cannot be correct. We asked for shelter. They are declaring war on the Kreth? They are coming here," Talon said. "In 2 days." The news spread across the planet within hours. The Valorian people did not know what to think. They had expected rejection, or perhaps an offer of refugee camps on some distant world. Instead, a species they barely knew had declared their home a protected zone. Far away, at Earth Orbital Station 7, Commander Daniel Carter watched his crew prepare for deployment. His communications officer, Lieutenant Laura Martinez, stood beside him. "Sir, the Valorian message is all over the network," Martinez said. "The other species are calling us crazy. The Kreth Dominion has never lost a war. They have conquered 43 worlds." Carter nodded slowly. "How many of those worlds asked for help before they fell?" Martinez checked her records. "Most of them, sir. They sent distress signals to anyone who would listen, and nobody answered." "No, sir. No, sir." The galactic community considered interference too risky. Carter turned to look at the main display. It showed the Valorian system, small and far away, surrounded by the red markers of approaching Kreth warships. "Get me a channel to Fleet Command," he said. "I want confirmation on our deployment orders." "Already confirmed, sir. The Third Fleet is mobilizing. Transport ships, construction vessels, and the carrier group are ready to jump." Carter allowed himself a small smile. "They asked for shelter. They're going to get a lot more than that." 47 hours later, the sky above Valora Prime filled with light. Ambassador Talon stood on the steps of the council building and watched as hundreds of ships appeared from nowhere. But they were not evacuation transports. They were not refugee carriers. They were warships. Massive vessels with weapons that gleamed in the sunlight. Behind them came construction ships, their hulls loaded with materials and equipment. Fighter craft launched from carrier bays and took up defensive positions around the planet. Talon received a transmission on his communication device. A human voice spoke clearly through the static. "Ambassador Talon Vey, this is General Nathan Perry of the United Earth Ground Forces. We are here in response to your request. Please prepare a landing zone for our command staff. We have a lot of work to do and not much time." Talon looked up at the sky filled with human ships. He had asked for shelter. He had asked for a place where his people could hide from the coming storm. Instead, the humans had brought the storm with them. The first human shuttle landed in the main square of Valora Prime's capital city. Ambassador Talon Vey waited with a group of elders as the doors opened and humans stepped onto Valorian soil for the first time. General Nathan Perry was tall and calm. His uniform was simple and practical. He walked with the confidence of someone who had seen many battles and survived them all. Behind him came officers, engineers, and soldiers carrying equipment that the Valorians did not recognize. Talon stepped forward and raised his hand in the traditional Valorian greeting. "General Perry, on behalf of my people, I welcome you to our world. We are grateful that you answered our call." Perry shook Talon's hand in the human way. "Ambassador, we received your message and we understood your situation. You asked for shelter. We're here to make sure you never need to run again." Talon hesitated. "General, I must be honest with you. We asked for refugee camps. A place to hide. We did not ask you to fight our war." Perry looked around at the damaged buildings and the frightened faces of Valorian civilians watching from doorways. "Ambassador, where I come from, shelter doesn't mean hiding. It means making sure the danger can't reach you in the first place." More shuttles landed throughout the city. Humans poured out carrying construction materials, weapons, medical supplies, and food. They moved with purpose and speed, as if every second mattered. A woman approached Perry and saluted. She had short, dark hair and wore the uniform of an engineering course. "General, Chief Engineer Samantha Cole reporting. My teams are ready to begin construction immediately." Perry nodded. "Start with orbital defense platforms. I want the first 3 operational within 72 hours. After that, ground shields, and bunker systems for the civilian population. Cole turned to Talon. Ambassador, we'll need access to your power grid and any construction facilities you have. We're going to build things your planet has never seen before. Talon could only nod. Everything was moving so fast. In orbit, Captain Kevin Brooks led his fighter squadron through a patrol pattern around the planet. His wingmate, Lieutenant Michelle Torres, flew beside him as they scanned the outer system for enemy contacts. Captain, I'm picking up long-range signals, Torres reported. Kreth fleet is 3 days out. Approximately 200 warships. Brooks checked his own sensors. The numbers were not good. The human fleet was outnumbered nearly 4-1. But numbers had never stopped humans before. Maintain patrol pattern, Brooks ordered, and start running combat simulations. I want every pilot ready when those ships arrive. Back on the surface, Talon watched as human soldiers soared throughout the city. They set up defensive positions at every corner and intersection. They installed strange devices on rooftops and in open squares. They worked without rest, without complaint. A young human sergeant approached a group of Valorian civilians who were watching with wide eyes. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm Sergeant Chris Morgan. We're setting up emergency shelters in this area. Can you help me find the best locations?" The Valorians looked at each other in confusion. They had expected conquerors, not partners. One elderly Valorian stepped forward nervously. "You want our help?" Morgan smiled. "Of course. You know this city better than we do. We can build the shelters, but you can tell us where people will need them most." The elderly Valorian nodded slowly and began pointing to different areas. Morgan listened carefully and took notes. Within minutes, other Valorians joined in, offering suggestions and local knowledge. In the council chamber, General Perry spread maps and displays across the main table. Talon and the other elders gathered around as Perry explained the defense plan. "The Kreth will expect you to be alone and helpless," Perry said. "They'll attack with overwhelming force because that's how they've won every war. Fast, brutal, and without mercy." High Elder Cirrus spoke quietly. "That is what we fear. We cannot fight them. We have no weapons, no training." Perry looked at her with steady eyes. "You don't need weapons. You have us. Your job is to keep your people calm and safe. Our job is to make sure no Kreth soldier ever touches Valorian soil." "But why?" Talon asked. The question had been burning inside him since the first human ships arrived. "Why would you risk so much for strangers? The other species refused because they feared the Kreth. Why don't you fear them?" Perry was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "Ambassador, on Earth, we have a saying. The measure of a civilization is how it treats those who cannot defend themselves. You asked for help. That was enough." Outside the council building, Samantha Cole directed her engineering teams as they assembled the first orbital defense platform. The structure took shape piece by piece, rising from the construction yard like a metal flower. A Valorian engineer named Selim watched in amazement. He was young, barely an adult by Valorian standards, and he had never seen anything built so quickly. "How do you do this?" Selim asked Cole. "Our engineers would take months to build something like this." Cole wiped sweat from her forehead and smiled. "Practice. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned how to build fast because sometimes fast is the difference between living and dying." Selim looked up at the platform taking shape above them. "Will it be enough? The Kreth have conquered so many worlds." "Those worlds didn't have us," Cole said simply. "Now help me with this power coupling. I'll show you how it works." In the depths of space, Warlord Dominax stood on the bridge of his flagship and received reports about the human presence in the Valorian system. His officers showed him images of human ships, human weapons, human soldiers. Dominax laughed. The sound echoed through the bridge. This is what the Valorians found to defend them. A primitive species from a backwater world? They've been in space for only a few decades. My lord, one officer said carefully, intelligence suggests the humans are more capable than they appear. They have won several conflicts in their home region. Against whom? Other primitives? Dominax waved his hand dismissively. The Kreth Dominion has conquered 43 worlds. These humans will be our 44th and 45th. He turned to his fleet commanders. Maintain course and speed. We will crush them and the Valorians together. Let this be a lesson to the galaxy about what happens when you stand against the Dominion. Back on Valora Prime, the sun was setting. Talon stood on a balcony and watched as human soldiers and Valorian civilians worked side by side in the fading light. Children who had been crying in fear that morning were now laughing as human soldiers gave them food and played simple games with them. General Perry joined him on the balcony. 3 days, Ambassador. That's when the Kreth will arrive. Are your people ready? Talon looked at the general. I do not know if we will ever be ready for war. But for the first time since this nightmare began, my people have hope. You gave us that. Barry nodded and looked out at the city. Hope is a weapon too, Ambassador. Sometimes it's the strongest one we have. The Kreth fleet entered the Valorian system like a storm of metal and fire. 200 warships spread across the darkness of space, their weapons already charging. Warlord Dominax stood on his bridge and watched the planet grow larger on his display. Begin the attack, he ordered. Destroy their orbital defenses first. Then we burn the cities. Kreth ships surged forward. Energy beams lit up the void as they targeted the newly constructed defense platforms. But something unexpected happened. The platforms fired back with weapons the Kreth had never encountered. 3 Kreth cruisers exploded in the first 30 seconds. In the command center on Valora Prime, General Perry watched the battle unfold on holographic displays. All fighters launch. Carry your group, hold position, and provide cover fire. Engineering teams, I need those shield generators online now. Captain Kevin Brooks led his squadron out of the carrier bay and into the chaos of battle. His fighter was small compared to the Kreth warships, but it was fast and deadly. All pilots, stay in formation, Brooks commanded through his radio. Target their weapon arrays. Make them blind before they can hit our ships. Lieutenant Michelle Torres flew beside him. Her voice was calm despite the explosions all around them. Captain, I count 30 fighters coming at us from the left. I see them. Break and engage. Show them what human pilots can do. The fighters scattered and attacked. Human pilots flew directly at the Kreth vessels, weaving through enemy fire with skill that seemed impossible. They got close enough to see the markings on Kreth hulls before unleashing their weapons. Warlord Dominax watched his display in disbelief. 3 more ships had fallen. His fighters were being destroyed faster than they could launch. The primitive humans were fighting like no species he had ever encountered. They fly like they have no fear of death, one of his officers said. They attack at ranges where any hit will destroy them. Then destroy them, Dominax growled. Send the landing forces. If we cannot win in space quickly, we will take the planet and use their own people against them. Kreth dropships broke through the orbital battle and descended toward Valora Prime. They landed in waves across the countryside, deploying soldiers and heavy weapons. On the ground, Sergeant Chris Morgan received reports of enemy landings near several Valorian villages. He gathered his squad and loaded into a transport. Listen up, Morgan said to his soldiers. Civilians are our priority. We hold the line no matter what. No Kreth gets past us. They arrived at a small village just as Kreth soldiers emerged from the tree line. Morgan deployed his squad and opened fire. The battle was immediate and brutal. Valorian villages ran for the shelters that human engineers had built over the past 3 days. Morgan's soldiers covered their retreat, firing continuously at the advancing KRETH. A Kreth energy blast hit the soldier next to Morgan. She fell hard but was still alive. Morgan dragged her behind cover while still firing his weapon. "Medic!" he shouted. "Torres is down." Elder Physician Nalith had followed the human soldiers against orders. She rushed to the wounded soldier and began treating her injuries with Valorian medical equipment. "Why are you here?" Morgan demanded between shots. "You should be in the shelter." Nalith worked quickly on the wound. "I am a healer. Your people are bleeding for mine. I will not hide while you die." Morgan wanted to argue, but there was no time. The Kreth were pushing harder. He called for air support. In the sky above, Michelle Torres received the request. She broke away from the main battle and dove toward the village. Kreth anti-aircraft fire filled the air around her. "Morgan, this is Torres. I'm coming in hot. Get your people down." She released her missiles at the Kreth position. The explosions tore through their ranks and gave Morgan's squad room to breathe. But her fighter was hit by return fire. "I'm losing control," Torres reported calmly. "Engine failure. I can still make one more pass." Brooks shouted through the radio. "Torres, eject now." "That's an order." "Negative, Captain. They have a bomber preparing to hit the village. I can stop it." Torres aimed her damaged fighter at the Kreth bomber. She waited until the last possible second, then ejected. Her seat rocketed away as her fighter crashed into the bomber. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. The ejection seat carried Torres far from the explosion. She landed hard in a field outside the village. Morgan saw her come down and sent 2 soldiers to recover her. The first wave of Kreth was broken. Bodies littered the ground around the village. Morgan's squad had taken casualties, but the civilians were safe. Nalith finished treating the wounded human soldier and looked at Morgan with new understanding in her eyes. "You could have retreated. You could have saved yourselves. Why did you stay?" Morgan reloaded his weapon and scanned the tree line for more enemies. "Because retreating means they get to you. That's not happening." In orbit, the battle continued. Human ships fought with a fury that shocked the Kreth commanders. They did not retreat when damaged. They did not surrender when outnumbered. They pressed forward with attacks that seemed suicidal but somehow worked. Kevin Brooks destroyed his 7th enemy fighter and saw the Kreth fleet beginning to pull back. "General Perry, enemy forces are regrouping. First wave repelled." Perry's voice came through clearly. "Good work, Captain. Get your pilots back for repairs and resupply. This isn't over." On his flagship, Warlord Dominax stared at the casualty reports. He had lost 32 ships, thousands of soldiers. His landing forces had been stopped cold. How? He demanded. How did primitives do this? None of his officers had an answer. Dominax slammed his fist against his command console. "Bring up reinforcements from the rear. We attack again at dawn. No mercy, no restraint. I want that planet turned to ash." On Valora Prime, the sun was setting again. Ambassador Talon walked through the village where Morgan's squad had fought. Human soldiers sat exhausted against walls and trees. Valorian healers treated their wounds. He found General Perry standing at the edge of the village, looking at the battlefield. "They will come again," Talon said. Perry nodded. "Yes, they will, and you will fight again." Perry turned to face him. "They wanted to see what humans do when our backs are against the wall, Ambassador. Now they know. And tomorrow, they'll learn what happens when we push back." Days turned into weeks. The Kreth attacked again and again, and each time the humans pushed them back. The beautiful green hills of Valora Prime became battlefields. The clear skies filled with smoke and the light of weapons fire. but the humans held the line. Samantha Cole had not slept more than 3 hours at a time since the siege began. Her engineering teams worked around the clock, repairing damaged defense platforms, building new fortifications, and adapting their technology to counter each new Kreth tactic. "The enemy is learning," she told General Perry during a brief meeting. "They're changing their attack patterns. We need to stay ahead of them." Perry nodded. "What do you need?" "More time. More materials." Cole looked at her tablet. "And honestly, a miracle would help." The miracle arrived 12 hours later. A fleet of human ships jumped into the system, their hulls fresh and their weapons fully loaded. Admiral Rebecca Hunt commanded from the bridge of her flagship. She had brought 30 warships, 2 carriers, and enough supplies to last months. "General Perry," Hunt said, through the communication channel, "the United Earth Council sends their regards. We're here to finish what you started." Perry allowed himself a rare smile. "Admiral, your timing is excellent. The Kreth have been hitting us hard. Fresh ships will make a real difference." Hunt's fleet moved into position around the planet. Kreth scouts detected the new arrivals and sent panicked reports back to Warlord Dominax. On his flagship, Dominax received the news with cold fury. He had requested reinforcements from the Dominion leadership 3 times. Each time they had refused. Now the humans had reinforcements and he did not. "They are a primitive species," his communications officer reported carefully. "The High Command believes we should be able to handle them alone." "Handle them?" Dominax swept his arm across the tactical display. "We have lost 60 ships, 12,000 soldiers, and still they hold that miserable planet." He turned to his senior commander. "We attack tomorrow. Everything we have. If we cannot break them with skill, we will break them with numbers." On the surface of Valora Prime, Ambassador Talon walked through a refugee camp that had grown around the capital city. Valorians from destroyed villages lived in shelters built by human engineers. Human soldiers walked among them, distributing food and medical supplies. He watched a young human soldier sit down with a group of Valorian children. The soldier pulled out a small device and began playing music. It was simple and happy, and the children started to smile for the first time in weeks. A young Valorian named Selim approached Talon. He had been working with the human engineers since they arrived, and now he led a group of Valorian youths who helped with supply distribution and communications. "Ambassador," Selim said, "my people want to do more. We want to fight beside the humans." Talon looked at the young man with concern. "We are not warriors, Selim. We do not know how to fight. Then let us learn." Selim pointed to the human soldiers. "They came here knowing nothing about us. They knew nothing about our world, our people, our customs. But they came anyway. They are dying for us anyway." His voice grew stronger. "The least we can do is stand with them." Talon considered this for a long moment. Then he placed his hand on Selim's shoulder. "Talk to Sergeant Morgan. See what help you can offer. But Selim, be careful. War changes people." That night, General Perry held a strategy meeting in the underground command center. Admiral Hunt joined by holographic link from her ship. Around the table stood the officers who had led the defense for the past 3 weeks. "Intelligence suggests the Kreth will launch a massive assault tomorrow," Perry said. "They're committing everything they have left. If we break them here, the war is over." Hunt leaned forward. "And if we don't break them?" Perry was silent for a moment. "Then we keep fighting until we do." The next morning, the Kreth attacked with everything they had. Ships darkened the sky as they descended on the main Valorian city. Warlord Dominax led from his flagship, determined to end the siege with a final crushing blow. Admiral Hunt's fleet met them in orbit. The battle was the largest yet, with hundreds of ships firing at once. Explosions lit up the darkness like a second sun. On the ground, Kreth soldiers landed in waves. They pushed toward the city center with overwhelming force. General Perry directed the defense from the front lines, standing in the open as enemy fire rained down around him. "Hold this position," he shouted to his troops. "They don't get one step closer." Sergeant Morgan's squad fought at the edge of the city. Beside them stood Selim and his Valorian volunteers. They were not soldiers, but they carried supplies, helped wounded soldiers to safety, and kept communications running when systems failed. A Kreth blast hit the building next to Morgan. He was thrown to the ground, his ears ringing. When he looked up, he saw a Kreth soldier standing over him, weapon raised. Selim appeared from nowhere. He swung a metal pipe at the Kreth soldier's head, knocking him back long enough for Morgan to grab his weapon and fire. Morgan looked at Selim in surprise. "I thought you weren't warriors." Selim helped him to his feet. "We weren't, but you taught us something important." "What's that?" "That some things are worth fighting for." The battle raged for hours. Human and Kreth forces clashed across the city. The ground shook with explosions. The air filled with the sounds of weapons and the cries of the wounded. But slowly, the tide began to turn. Admiral Hunt's fleet destroyed Kreth ship after Kreth ship. The orbital defense platforms that Samantha Cole had built proved nearly invincible. On the ground, every inch the Kreth gained cost them dearly as the sun began to set. Warlord Dominax received a message from General Perry. The human general's face appeared on his screen. Calm and steady despite the chaos of battle. "Warlord Dominax," Perry said, "you have fought well. Your soldiers have shown courage. But this war is over. Leave now, and we will not pursue you. Stay, and we will show you what humans do when we stop defending and start hunting." Dominax stared at the screen. His fleet was crippled. His army was broken. And still the humans stood, unbowed and unbroken. "This is not over," Dominax said, his voice shaking with rage. Perry's expression did not change. "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." The transmission ended. Dominax looked at his tactical display. Red markers showed destroyed Kreth ships. Yellow markers showed damaged ones. Green markers, the ones still fighting, were getting fewer by the minute. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Warlord Dominax felt something he had never felt before: fear. Warlord Dominax rejected the offer to retreat. He stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship and gave one final order to his remaining forces: attack. Attack until nothing was left. He would not return to the Dominion as a failure. He would not be remembered as the warlord who lost to primitives, but his officers no longer obeyed with enthusiasm. They had seen too many ships fall, too many soldiers die. The humans had broken something inside the Kreth military that day. They had broken the belief that victory was certain. Admiral Hunt watched the Kreth fleet regroup for one last desperate assault. She opened a channel to all human ships. "This is Admiral Hunt. The enemy refuses to surrender. They're coming at us with everything they have left. Let's finish this." Human ships moved forward. They did not wait for the Kreth to attack. They went hunting. Captain Kevin Brooks led his squadron directly at the Kreth flagship. His pilots had been fighting for weeks without rest. They were tired and wounded, but they flew with a fury that made the Kreth pilots hesitate. "Target the flagship's engines," Brooks ordered. "We don't need to destroy it. We just need to stop it." Lieutenant Michelle Torres flew beside him. Her arm was still bandaged from her ejection weeks ago, but she had refused to stay grounded. "Captain, I'm detecting heavy defenses around the command section. They're protecting Dominax. Then we'll go through them. All pilots, form up on me. We're ending this now." The squadron dove at the flagship. Kreth fighters tried to intercept them. but human pilots cut through them like fire through paper. Brooks felt his ship shake as enemy fire grazed his wing, but he kept flying. They reached the flagship's engine section and unleashed everything they had. Missiles and energy weapons tore into the massive ship. Explosions ripped through its hull. The engines flickered and died. On the bridge, Dominax felt his ship shudder to a halt. Warning lights flashed across every console. His officers reported catastrophic damage to propulsion, weapons, and life support. "We are disabled," his senior commander said quietly. "We cannot fight. We cannot run." Dominax stared at the display showing human ships surrounding his crippled vessel. They could destroy him at any moment. One shot from any of those ships, and he would be dead. But the shot did not come. "Admiral," Hunt's voice came through the communication system. "Warlord Dominax, your ship is disabled. Your fleet is defeated. I'm offering you one final chance to surrender. Accept, and your surviving soldiers will be treated fairly and returned to your people when the war ends. Refuse, and we will continue until there is nothing left." Dominax closed his eyes. Surrender was not something the Kreth did. Their culture demanded death before dishonor. He had conquered 43 worlds by never showing weakness. But looking at the humans who had beaten him, he understood something. They were not weak for offering mercy. They were strong enough to choose it. "I refuse your offer," he said quietly. Then he turned to his officers. "Abandon ship. Get our people to the escape pods." His senior commander looked confused. "My lord? The war is lost. There is no point in more death. Save our soldiers. Let them return to their families." Dominax looked at the human ships on his display. "The humans have won. Let them have their victory. And you, my lord?" Dominax reached for the self-destruct control. "I will not be their prisoner, but I will not take you with me." The Kreth officers hesitated, then began moving to the escape pods. Within minutes, the flagship was empty except for Dominax himself. He watched the pods launch and drift toward the human ship's dot. Then he activated the self-destruct dot. The explosion was bright and brief. Dominax died the way he had lived, alone and proud. The remaining Kreth ships, leaderless and broken, turned and fled the system. They did not stop until they were far beyond Valorian space. The war was over. On the surface of Valora Prime, Ambassador Talon received word of the victory. He walked outside the council building and looked up at the sky. Human ships still orbited above, but now they were not weapons of war. They were guardians. General Perry found him there. The human general looked tired. He had not slept in days. But there was satisfaction in his eyes. "It's done," Perry said. "The Kreth are gone. They won't be coming back." Talon took a deep breath. The air no longer smelled of smoke. "General, I do not know how to thank you. You came to us as strangers. You fought and died for people you had never met." "Why?" Perry was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "When we received your message, it was very simple. You asked for shelter. You asked for help. That's all it took, Ambassador." Someone asked. "But the cost," Talon said. "Your people gave their lives." "Yes," Perry agreed. "They did. Because that's what it means to be human. We protect those who need protecting. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. It's not complicated. It's just who we are." In the days that followed, human engineers began rebuilding what the war had destroyed. Samantha Cole led teams that constructed new cities, new infrastructure, and permanent defenses that would protect Valora Prime for generations. Kevin, Brooks' squadron was reassigned to train Valorian pilots. The scholars and artists who had never imagined flying combat ships learned from humans who had mastered the art of war. Sergeant Morgan walked through the village he had defended weeks ago. Valorian children ran up to him, laughing and calling his name. One small child tugged at his sleeve. "Sergeant Morgan," the child asked in careful English, "why did you come so far to help us?" "We are strangers." Morgan knelt down to look the child in the eyes. He thought about the question for a moment. Then he smiled. "Because someone asked," he said. "That's all it ever takes." Ambassador Talon stood before a communication console in the council chamber. He was recording a message that would be broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species, every world, every listening ear would hear his words. "To all who receive this message," Talon began, "I speak to you as ambassador of the Valorian people. 3 months ago, our world faced destruction. We sent calls for help to 17 species. All refused. All were afraid." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Then we called the humans. We asked only for shelter, a place to hide while our world burned. We expected nothing. We hoped for very little." Talon looked out the window at the human ships still orbiting above his world. "What we received was beyond anything we imagined. The humans did not give us shelter. They gave us defenders. They gave us soldiers who stood beside us when no one else would. They gave us engineers who built walls to protect our children. They gave us pilots who flew into fire so our cities would survive." His voice grew stronger. "We asked the humans for shelter. They sent commanders, builders, and warplanes. They sent their sons and daughters to fight and die for strangers. And when the enemy was defeated, they stayed to help us rebuild." Talon turned to face the recording device directly. "To every species listening to this message, know this. The humans are not primitives. They are not savages. They are the most remarkable people this galaxy has ever seen. And to anyone who faces darkness and thinks there is no hope, remember what happened here. Ask the humans for help. You may be surprised by what they give you." He ended the recording. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched and listened. Many had dismissed humanity as a young and violent species, not worth attention. Now they saw something different. They saw a species that answered when called. They saw a species that fought for strangers. They saw a species that gave hope to those who had none, and across 1,000 worlds. The name of humanity took on new meaning. The humans had come, and they had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be human.